Hello and welcome to Almost 30 Podcast.
Hi, everybody. We're so glad you're here. It's Lindsay and it's Krista. We're best friends. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to Almost 30. If you're new, we're so glad you're here. If you're an OG, what's up? I'm so grateful for you. I love y'all so very much. It's so meaningful to me that you listen and love Almost 30, and you've been with us for years now, since 2016. In September, when we launched this crazy mess of a show. Now we've evolved to this point where we've been rocking with Almost 30 for a while now, and we are over 30. So believe it or not.
And we've changed quite a bit if you've been along for the ride, which has been a very cool part of the show. We both get messages all the time where it's like, I'm an OG. I've been with you since the days of, fill in the blank for Krista and I. And it's been cool to share, just our highs, our lows, our learnings. It's been, such a blessing because I know so many of you out there are going through similar transitions and changes, whether it's in relationship, your career, your health. So it's been cool to do it together.
Yeah, it's been amazing. And today we have the dear Olivia, Organic Olivia, on the podcast. My dear friend, my New Yorker at heart. And this was such a pleasure because she and I are so close. And so it was so nice to sit down. We did a pod swap that day where I went on her show, What's the Juice? Which she recently rebranded. The new cover art looks amazing, and she's just really going all in on the show. So highly recommend listening to What's the Juice. Olivia has such a unique way of interviewing. She's so smart. She's so cerebral. Like, she just kind of gets to it, and she brings a lot of science. So we sat down and talked on her show, and then I got to sit down with her for Almost 30, which is what you're going to listen to today. And we talked a lot about codependency, which is something that, Lindsay has worked with, I've worked with, Olivia's worked with really deeply. And so it was really powerful to explore in conversation a topic that I think is talked about, but I also think people don't realize how deeply embedded in our experience it is. When I'm working with anyone on a one-to-one basis, it's really profound to see the ways in which codependency can get into almost all of our experiences and all of our lives, and how when you are codependent, and I think this was me during my experience, you aren't really aware of what you're doing. You aren't really aware that your entire life existence and your experience is fully based on someone else. It's fully based on how everyone else is doing. If everyone's okay, if everyone likes you, if everyone's cool with you, if everyone's, approving of you, then you're okay. If that means your online community, your social media community, your partner, your boss, your friends. And I was someone that definitely, had my value wrapped in how other people perceived me, if other people were approving of me, and had very little center and very little understanding of my own needs and desires in relationships and in friendships, and was someone that is really, really proud to say that I feel really clear in my relationships. I feel not like fully recovered, but I feel really, really good about the journey of codependency that I've been on. And a lot of that has been because of our healing and because of our practice together as friends. And I know that you were like the first person to go first in claiming being codependent, and I was kind of later in the game.
Yeah, I was the first codependent on earth. It's crazy.
Yeah. You're the trailblazing codep.
I was the first. So anyone else, you're copying me. Yeah, dude. I mean,
no, you were like, I'm codep. I'm like, I'm codep too. That's like true codep. I was like, wait, you can't be codep alone.
It is like the blooming onion of self-development. It just keeps on. I'm like, whoa, there's another layer here. Yummy. Let's keep going.
As a former hostess at Outback, I approve of that analogy.
Thank you. It's it's something that when I realized, I remember being kind of in denial that I was codependent when my therapist brought it up. My first therapist brought it up years ago, and I was like, huh? Like the title, the word, I was like, no, that's not me. I'm just a really considerate person. I'm someone who's just really nice, and I want to make everyone feel comfortable, and that's not a bad thing. And I realized that, when we kind of walked through examples and like real life scenarios and noted how my nervous system was completely dysregulated around certain people. And then that template was being repeated over and over with various relationships. I was like, oh my God, okay, like this is, and then I was seeing how other people in my life were codependent with other people or with me, or like it was just like this web that at first, to be completely honest, was very overwhelming. So if you're someone that's like discovering this now and feel overwhelmed and just like you'll never not be codependent, I really feel you. But I think the awareness is 75% of the work, to be aware of that within a relationship is so profound. Um, and then it just takes a lot of practice. And I've seen you do this like so beautifully in the last few years where it's like almost pausing in relationship. And we've done this a lot where it's like pausing when you notice the pattern is popping up, being able to literally pause within the relationship and be like, whoa, okay, what I am feeling in this moment is, or the story I'm telling myself is, and then proceeding from there rather than just jumping right back into the loop of the pattern. Because that's easier, to be honest, and doesn't take as much consciousness.
Yeah, it's huge. And I think so if we kind of were to pull up on like what codependency is, I think when we were growing up, codependency was more so defined in relationship to addicts, to people that were alcoholics, to people that had severe drug issues. And it was meant as if you were the person that was codependent in enabling that person in their addiction. So you were kind of, allowing them to be really in their process. And
Yeah.
it still stands where that person that is codependent with someone that's an alcoholic or an addict is putting the alcoholic and the addict's needs before their own. And they're really just kind of making that experience for the alcoholic or the addict more comfortable and more possible because they are not standing up for and desiring and being in their own experience and needs. But I think now it's sort of shifted to be more of the subtleties and more of the nuances of experiences. If we were to think about signs of codependency, those are a compelling desire to control others. I think a lot of us have that. So a lot of women in relationships will look at their partners and have this deep desire to control them. It is poor communication in relationships. So you're unable to express your needs, your boundaries, your desires. You're unable to tune into your experience. It is doing things you don't want to make others happy. That's something that I have to be super mindful of is I will bend over backwards and be running on empty to make other people happy. I will all of the time burn myself out because I feel afraid to say no. I feel like I have to do things to be loved in relationship. I have to overgive or over deliver to be accepted. So I think that's a really huge one that I see a lot of people doing, especially my overachievers. It also is difficulty making decisions. So you're not able to make decisions because you can't really find your center. You can't find the you in experiences and situations. So you find it really hard to make decisions. You're also really impacted by what everyone else wants. You kind of prioritize everyone else's desires over your own. It's also the tendency to apologize to keep the peace. So this can happen in conversations if you were ever to bring something up to a partner or a family member or a boss and you're like, hey, I kind of want to do this. And you notice the energy shifting and you notice there's like a little discomfort. You can start to apologize or try and make everything okay because you feel uncomfortable standing in your own experience. It's also the fear of losing relationships and abandonment. A lot of times people that are codependent have that fear. And there's also a tendency to do more than your share all of the time. I think this is something that you felt. I think this is something that I've really felt is I always feel like, or I have always felt like I have to do more than what is required in most situations and relationships to receive love or to be safe or to be, to be in a dynamic with a friend or whatever. So that's like sending flowers to every single person that I've ever met in my life. That's like just overextending myself, staying up until the wee hours of the night, processing something that is going above and beyond. It's like doing all of these things. And what can often happen is you can do that so much that you become resentful or you become angry that you feel like you're not getting the reciprocity in a relationship, but really you're sort of overgiving. There's also the overwhelming need to be reassured and recognized. So you need to be reassured, you need to be recognized. And then there is the problem with creating and keeping boundaries. So if you're someone that has a problem with creating boundaries, sticking up for yourself, and keeping and maintaining those boundaries, that can be a real sign of codependency. I think a good example of codependency in this lighter way rather than the addict route is, the example of maybe giving up your entire weekend to help your friend move, even though you need a day to yourself and you've been pushed to your limit and you have a lot going on and you feel like you could use a rest yourself. You're prioritizing your friend's experience and needs over your own in that moment to take care of what you need to do to be healthy yourself. So it's really the prioritization of someone else's needs and experiences, their desires over your own, and an inability to be in touch with your own experiences, needs, and desires.
Yeah, it showed up for a lot for me. It kind of, to be completely honest, it does show up in each new season of my life where I'm like not totally eradicated of the codependency, but like when I got married, when we even just moved in together, there was a lot of codependent tendencies that popped up where I was like, whoa, whether he would come home and be in a particular mood and I would be like, did I do something?
Yeah,
And it
of
had
course.
nothing to do with me. I've done that with you. And it's like, it's been my work to, in those moments, literally call myself back to my own experience and my own body and know that I don't need to fix anything about what's happening if I know the truth, where it's like, did I do anything? No, I know
Yep.
it's true. And to soothe myself in those moments. So sometimes I'll give him space and then we come back together and it's like totally fine. And we can talk about whatever's coming up without having it be like, what did I do wrong? Can I help you? Can I fix it? It's more of like a level neutral place. I feel like with us in the early years of almost 30, it was coming up so much. I'm so thankful that we like worked through that in the early-ish years, because then it was like, it was off to the races, baby. After that,
Because then we went to the moon. We said, let's be secure. And then
But
it really are getting through that and seeing the patterns helped me create that foundation for my relationships now, for my friendships now, and the friendships that I'm in. And yeah, it's funny for me, the codependency in my female relationships is waning. I only have a few that are standing where it feels out of integrity in a codependent way. But otherwise I'm like boundary bossing, but I do notice it in my, in dating a little bit. I was in therapy with my therapist talking about this situation with someone, and I was just like fully focused on their experience. It was a relationship I ended, or like a whatever I ended. And I was just fully focused. I'm like, okay, well, I feel bad that they da 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 da, and I know that they da 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 da, and just going on and just not caring at all about how I felt about the situation, how I felt about this person, what I, wanted, what I needed, and what I desired, and just kind of foregoing that for the full processing of this other person's experience and not seeing my own needs in it. And so, yeah, I definitely think it shows up in so many different ways. And I think it's definitely something that women struggle with way more than men. I think we are like codependent creatures by nature, and we are socialized to be codependent. We are socialized to be communal. We are socialized to overcare. We are socialized to overdeliver, and we just burn ourselves out. A lot of the expression of codependency in the biggest ways is being completely burnt out, not regarding our own needs and desires, and just kind of living our lives for other people, which is not the goal.
I wonder if there's like a primal part of women that's codependent,
Yeah.
but it's actually like it was useful at one point because there weren't, like, were relationships as complicated as they are now? Do you know what I'm saying? I'm just like thinking about what we know now. I think we put labels on everything. We're like, he's a narcissist, she's codependent, da 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 da. And back in the day, in the caves, we're just kind of like primally like women are caring, they are creating life, they are caring, they are nurturing. I don't know. It's just, I'm wondering what happened.
I think it would make sense that from a evolutionary perspective, we would be codependent, because to be safe, you have to be tuning in and checking on the needs of everyone else to be a part of a tribe means codependency in a lot of different ways. It's like, this woman is sick. I need to pick up her slack, take care of her children. This person can't do this. I need to, so actually to function as like an organism does kind of require that.
Yeah.
So maybe it did work for them in that way. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if it's maybe the modern society and way of living where it's like no longer needed or healthy and I think people can be like codependent on social media. Now it can be like you can be codependent on external things that are like not
Yeah.
even a human. So it's wild. But Olivia is the founder of Organic Olivia, which is an incredible brand. She's been on the podcast before. I think it was like 2 years ago. And that was a really beautiful conversation. We talked about her journey with microdosing. We talked about where she is in her process. And she's been someone that's built an amazing brand that makes multiple 7 figures and serves people in a way that's really, really beautiful. She's on her own journey right now of stepping into a different phase of her life and a different expression in her life. And she is someone that's so creative and heartfelt and heart-centered. And she's such an amazing friend. And so I think you guys are really going to love this conversation. I think you're going to really enjoy sort of the way that we approach it. And I'm hopeful that if you have codependency or codependent tendencies, that it will be a space where you can feel and explore into those patterns, and then hopefully get some help or find ways that you can really work with that experience. Because once you break free of codependency or become in right relation is really when you can live a life that you love and a life that you deserve.
Yeah. Yeah. We love you, Olivia. Thank you for coming on. Thank you all for listening. We appreciate your listenership. We know there's a lot of pods out there, but you can subscribe to Almost 30. It just ensures that all of our new episodes hit your little pod inbox. And be sure to subscribe to our other show, Morning Microdose, which is the best of Almost 30, little clips that you can start your day with, a little dose. And be sure to share this with a friend. I know y'all are going to love it.
Love you guys so much. You can find Organic Olivia at organicolivia.com. And then you can also find Olivia on Instagram. It is at organic_Olivia.
This episode is sponsored by Natural Cycles. I was talking to a friend the other day who went off birth control about 6 months ago and is wanting to not get pregnant. And so I recommended to her Natural Cycles. I've been using Natural Cycles for a couple years now. It actually helped me for a period of time to prevent pregnancy. And then when I was ready to get pregnant, it helped me to get pregnant, to understand and track when I was ovulating. And I'm just so thankful. I'm really, really thankful. This is an incredible innovation around women's health. The innovation around birth control has been seriously lacking. So I'm just like, woohoo, shouting it from the rooftops. For the past 10 years, Natural Cycles has been setting the precedent for non-hormonal and non-invasive birth control without sacrificing effectiveness. Natural Cycles was the first to introduce a birth control app, the first to receive FDA clearance as a birth control app, and the first birth control app to integrate with a wearable device. If you have an Oura ring, it integrates, which is amazing. They are really changing the game with research and passion, and I'm just thankful I get to spread the word with you. So how does this work? Okay, so every single morning I get up, and before I even get out of bed, I take my temperature. I have it just on my bedside table, and their algorithm uses body temp to determine where I am in my cycle. The more I measure, the more data it will have, and it just gets really super, super accurate. It's actually 93% effective with typical use and 98% effective with perfect use. So again, you use the thermometer first thing, or if you have your Oura ring, it takes your temperature first thing in the morning. And basically after I take my temperature and put it in, I either get a notification that I am on a red day or a green day. Green day says, have at it, have sex. You are not at risk for getting pregnant. A red day is, either abstain or use protection. And I have just gotten to know my cycle on such a deep level. I'm like, it's amazing. I'm so happy. I wasn't always someone like this that wanted to know about their cycle or even cared, but I know the power of our menstrual cycles. So I know you're going to love this if you are someone who wants to get pregnant, wants to prevent pregnancy, if you have come off hormonal birth control and want to figure out a way to naturally track your cycle. Oh my gosh, Natural Cycles is it. Naturalcycles.com. Use the code almost30 to get 15% off an annual subscription and a free thermometer, baby. Naturalcycles.com. Use the code almost 30, baby. You'll get 15% off an annual subscription and a free thermometer. Natural Cycles is for 18 and over and does not protect against STIs. Okay, small daily actions. They just make a big difference. And I just cannot emphasize this enough. It creates this cascade effect and honestly a snowball effect. So one begets the next. Really great, positive, small action, but it almost has like a bigger impact as the week goes on. And I'm just someone who very much believes in this, whether you're like smiling at a stranger, or maybe you wake up a little bit earlier to practice your meditation, or maybe read part of the book that you're loving, or maybe you integrate a healthy habit like taking a probiotic, which is something that I've been doing for a few years now. I've been taking Seeds DS-01 Daily Symbiotic, and I love it. And I've just noticed that this is the catalyst at the beginning of the day for a ton of healthy choices that I make. And I've noticed a difference when I don't take it. I forgot on vacation a few months ago and I noticed a difference. I was bloated. I wasn't as regular. I started to get a little breakout on my chin. Things were just going haywire. So I'm just so thankful for Seed. If you are someone who wants to support your gut or your skin, digestion, your gut barrier integrity, I recommend Seed. Their DS-01 Daily Symbiotic is incredible. What is different about Seed? So Seed's patented capsule and capsule design is so unique. It basically means that the fragile bacteria within the capsule can survive the journey. So from like shipping to your door to when you put it in your body, all the way through your GI tract, all without synthetic or chemical coatings. And this was developed in collaboration with Seed's scientific board and based on their foundational work in probiotics and the microbiome. They are the best in the space. So I trust them and I've experienced incredible results. So trust your gut with Seed's DS-01 Daily Symbiotic. Go to seed.com/almost and use the code 25almost to get 25% off your first month. That's 25% off your first month of Seed's DS-01 Daily Symbiotic at seed.com/almost. The code is 25almost.
Okay, let's do a prayer for God. Thank you, God, for bringing our souls together for this beautiful conversation. Please allow us to share from our hearts in a way that serves you, in a way that serves our highest timelines, that serves our heart, that serves our friendship, that serves the people who need to hear it the most. Thank you so much for allowing us to have fun and be light and remembering that this is easy and graceful and joyful and that all we have to do is be ourselves. I'm so grateful, God, for everything you've done to get us to this place of health, of joy, of clarity. We love you so much.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, God.
Thank you, God. We love God.
We love him.
We love him.
Him or her.
We love Goddess.
One time Nick had a crazy vision and like spoke to God kind of, or like spoke to his grandmother. And it was right after his grandmother died. And it was the night of her funeral. And he went to his mom's house to just be close. Like his mom was sleeping, but he just went there to be in her space and in his family's home energy. And like ended up playing video games for a long time and kind of went into, I don't know if he fell asleep playing the video games. I don't know. He doesn't know where he went. But he went up into space and started talking to his grandmother and grandfather who had passed a while before.
Whoa.
And he asked his grandmother questions about God, questions about our relationship, questions about his life. And she gave him the most beautiful answers. I know that it wasn't him because I've never heard him speak like that. He's deeply spiritual, but he's not openly, verbally spiritual.
Yes.
He's not going to philosophize, you know?
Yes.
So the answers that his grandmother was giving him, he was texting me in the morning. I was in college at the time. I was in my college class getting these text messages and I screenshotted all of them and I have them in a folder, like Nick's grandmother experience, so that I never forget what she said. And she basically said, God is male and female. and yeah, all these things.
Wow.
Yeah. She was talking about what like all religions almost get it right.
Wow.
They each have one thing that's off.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And he asked about me and our relationship, and this was back in the day. This was, I guess, 10-ish years ago. And she was like, Olivia is the one for you. She is like your grandfather and I when we were on the farm and, building our life together. But right now she's just a little selfish. So just give her time to see.
Wow.
And I mean, she was right. That's been my journey.
Of selfishness.
Really, it's been I've found spirituality through self-awareness around my own self-centeredness.
Yeah, I love that you say that because like as your close friend, it's like so interesting because it's hard for me to hear you say that because I'm like, I don't really see that, but I've known you a good amount of time and I've known you deeply, but I don't know you in that way. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if your friends would see that. So but it's nuanced and I understand what you're saying because that's what happens in codependency.
Exactly.
Is people perceive that their caring is, I'm caring about you, but it's actually the energy behind it is selfish.
Absolutely.
So talk more about that.
Well, I think there's the two sides to codependency. There's the one person who has this need where they must meet your needs and people please, right? And overcare in order to avoid themselves. And in order to fulfill the identity that they learned in childhood, which was, I can't possibly have my own needs because it's not safe. And so therefore, I will throw myself into meeting your needs to self-avoid and to gain the identity of being your savior. But it's not this conscious savior role really, but it builds resentment because there is a bit of a savior dynamic. And because that person is never getting their own needs met. But that really stems from the childhood of not being seen and never getting your needs met, maybe being the youngest child out of many, existing in a place of poverty within your family where there just wasn't resources for you. Your parents were working all the time. There's so many things that lead to that where it's not necessarily a parent's fault, but that child just learns that it's a lot easier to just not have needs. And then the other person on the receiving end sort of the codependency learned that they are so worthless essentially in this world, or they don't have a sense of strong self-identity, and they know they have these needs. And so they're looking for that person that will meet them, and through that other person fully committing to meeting every single one of their needs that they should be meeting themselves, they are looking for a sense of worth. Because this person loves me and is willing to self-sacrifice and do all these things for me, I can finally prove to myself that I am lovable, that I am worthy, because I can't love myself.
And it's like what you wish your parents would have done.
Yes.
It's like, oh, they're meeting my needs. They love me. They're actually taking the time. They're caring for me. So you're getting that need met of like, they're doing what I wish my parents would have done.
Yeah, I think that child who becomes the adult perhaps had to...
And that one's you.
That one's me.
Okay.
That one had to perform to be good.
My girl's fucking...
So it was like
Hollywood
constant.
actress.
She's an actress.
She's an actress, honey. The best
me
and the
on the
best
news.
are like, literally, catch me on the news. Catch me doing my thing. I mean, I'm an amazing performer too. Like you see me at parties. What?
Did you have to perform academically in order to achieve worth?
Yeah. So my journey with that was at home, I had to have no needs. I had to fully contort to the desires of my mom or desires of my dad to have my needs met. And mostly the way that I was valued was asking them questions, focus on them, make it about them, process their emotions, ask them what's going on. And this is why I'm an interviewer, to make it all about them. But then the way that I realized I could get attention as I got older was by being beautiful, by being successful, doing well in school, like being seen in the world.
Yeah.
And so I became a vehicle for a narcissist's like way of being seen, because when I'm successful, they can use that to make themselves feel better. So it's like whenever I've had success with whatever, it's like, oh, did you see Krista did this? And then they get the validation through my success. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So my performance started probably like in high school more so, where you're like, okay, how can I be I don't really know who I am. I don't really know what's going on, but you're kind of just bouncing off of people and energies, and you're just kind of figuring it out. You're like, ooh, does someone like me more when I'm like this?
Yep.
How can I be like this? How can I do these things? But most of my life, it was also following my mom around because she's so outlandish at times. Like, it's crazy, trying to make everyone else feel good because she would like hurt their feelings or be mean or just be off the wall. So I would perform to like make everyone feel better because I felt unsafe in that environment.
Yes. I similarly would perform to make my mom feel better.
Yes.
But she didn't necessarily outwardly project those feelings of low self-worth on others through those actions that in the way that your mom did, more narcissistic.
Yeah.
She just had a deep, deep, deep sense of low self-worth, no sense of self. And that, I mean, everything that you're saying, everything that we're saying, the root of all of these issues, whether you're on any side of codependency and whether you're on even the opposite extreme, which is narcissism, which still even exists in the codependent, it all is stemming from this lack of a strong self-identity and self-esteem.
Yeah.
And what I learned the most through my journey is that I was always looking for that self-esteem externally. I was always looking to perform and be successful and have this thing that would prove it, whether it was my business success or the way that people viewed me, whatever it was. Yeah. And I found that will never build your self-esteem. You will never be able to outsource that to an external lens of you. Self-esteem is only built through esteemable acts. That is what I had to start doing. The tiny little things, being so in integrity with my character. And I think that's why perhaps I'm overly hard on myself now, where I'm overly critical of any bit of self-centeredness that I have. And where you're saying, okay, I don't see that self-centeredness in you. It's because I'm in the
I hear you.
Opposite state of let me be as in integrity as I possibly can, which, as you know, I'm now restructuring my life around that.
Yep. And I hear what you're saying, because it's interesting, because even when you're in the phase of being hyperly self-critical, where you're like, oh, you're being so selfish, you're still self-focused.
Yeah.
In a way that's negative.
Yes.
So it's just funny how, in parts work we talk about this, but it's like your energy just morphs because that part of you is still active.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, first of all, I'm going to be focused on myself unconsciously. I'm going to have everyone try and meet my needs. I'm going to make it all about me. I'm going to do whatever I can. But then you kind of become conscious of it, and then it becomes a different monster.
Yes.
Where you're like, no, wait, I've done this wrong and I'm doing this thing, and your selfishness is like, it's crazy.
And you realize that self-centeredness initially, if I'm going to have everyone else meet my needs, I'm going to unknowingly be selfish, comes just from that little child who was never fully seen.
Yes.
I was never fully seen for who I was. I was only seen for the way that I could perform and what I could do for others. And I was never just witnessed for me in all of my messiness and flaws and all of that. And so, of course, that creates someone who is self-centered or selfish, because you are in survival mode. Yep. You have learned to do that in order to self-preserve.
Yep.
So then, yes, you then develop an awareness around it. You take mushrooms one day and you're like, oh my God, I've been an asshole unknowingly because I was so broken.
Yeah.
And I was just I was grabbing at ways to get my needs met in the world. And by doing that, I actually hurt some people. And I actually engage in relationships in ways that also didn't witness the other person, because that's what I experienced in childhood. And then you go the other way of trying to correct it. And yes, it's still self-focused, but then when you realize that the solution is to start acting in an integrous and altruistic way for others, to serve both yourself and others, you come to a solution that is balanced, where you can take care of both yourself and other people in the world.
Yeah.
And it's good.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. I do feel like it's like what I've found has been the most helpful for me in my codependency is like I had to find the self. And it's that felt sense self.
Yes.
Where you're like, this is it. And it's so hard to describe, because once you have it, you're like, oh, I know. Yeah. But if you're always just kind of going around looking for everyone to meet your needs, or looking for everyone to tell you who you are, you're never going to actually like exist in the world as a unique soul or individual. And you're always going to be a victim to everyone else and everyone's circumstance. But I think a lot of our generation is a generation of people that did not have their needs met by their parents, were not seen by their parents, were only valued for what they did, weren't loved genuinely for who they are. And I remember in my dating journey, I've been like, oh my God, I can't wait for my man to see me for everything that I love about myself and then more. And that desire is so beautiful, and it will be manifested, but it's also my desire for me as a child, for my mother and father to see that.
Absolutely.
You know, it's like, oh my God, I wish they could just see me for all of these amazing qualities that I have. I'm so X, Y, Z. I'm all of these things. And then we try and go to our relationships to have these things solved. So
attachment theory.
Attachment theory. Exactly.
Literally.
Yeah.
But also, yes. And then in my case, I met a partner who did see me so fully and met all of those needs that I never had met in childhood and was willing to do all of that for me. And then you become dependent on that person seeing you, and you don't have to see yourself.
Yeah.
So it just becomes another almost like addiction to external. The root of this, I think the root of addiction, period, is codependency.
Yeah.
When codependency doesn't exist, then you're not looking for outside sources to make you feel that sense of self, to make you feel seen, to make you feel calm, to regulate your nervous system. That's why I always turn to things like cannabis. I smoked cannabis for 10 years straight. It wasn't a healthy relationship, but it was the only thing that would regulate my nervous system. So I was also outsourcing that to something external.
Yeah.
I was outsourcing a lot to my partner to co-regulate with me and to validate me and to calm my nervous system. And so I just think of myself and my codependency as like this addict. And until I can get those little glimpses of self, which you said, when you have that moment where you're like, oh, this is me, I feel myself for maybe the first time. It's very hard to hold on to that. That's why I've been solo traveling so much. That's why I've been coming here to California to work and taking my space where I'm just in my own energy, because that's the time that I feel the glimpses. Because when I'm around people that can meet my needs, I get too wrapped up in allowing them to do that.
Yeah. There's a neural pathway that you ride on that you're like, this is comfortable, this is easy, this takes the least amount of energy, this is my way of being for 10, 20, 30 years of my life, where you're like, I'm going to have my needs met this way. So it is like the process of unraveling, to really find a new way of being. But it's funny, I'm in a friendship, I'm in a friendship that I deeply love. And it was interesting because I noticed myself relying on her to build me up and to she became almost like the fuel that I need and the confidence that I needed, where she would just build me up. She would just say the most amazing, nice things. And I would almost become it because she said it. And I'd be like, oh my God, I am this. And then we didn't have a moment, but like we oscillate. We're like a friendship that's like super deep 1 month. And then like we kind of chill. We like go in and out. And I noticed myself when we went out, I was unfucking well. I'm like, oh my God, where's my sense of self? Where's my confidence? Like, who am I outside of this? And it was this thing where I was like, I'm attached to her because she became my direction for the way of being that I needed. And like, she became my confidence. So it's interesting because I'm in such healthy, amazing, deep friendships with women, but I have to be mindful because these women are amazing women that compliment me, that are kind to me, that build me up. But then I can kind of like get addicted to it a little bit, where I'm like, oh, this is my fuel.
Yep. I 1000% have had many friendships like that. I just had a friendship like that. And I absolutely relied on that person to get me pumped up about things, to help me see myself in that powerful way, to get me excited about who I was and what I was doing. And that's a very unhealthy dynamic because when they're not there, you don't have that intrinsically. And it's so much healthier sometimes when that person is no longer there, because then your back is up against the wall and you have to find it within yourself. And that's one healthy reason why unhealthy, quote unquote, friendships should end sometimes. Doesn't mean that there's something terrible that happened or a fallout. You just realize that it became too sticky, too damp. I always talk about dampness in Chinese medicine because it's this concept of whether it's a sticky, unhealthy microbiome in the gut where there's dampness and maybe an overgrowth of fungi and stickiness, or there's dampness in the liver, kind of like insulin resistance. Liver dampness is also like fatty liver. There's all of these metabolic sources of dampness. And then there's these energetic sources of dampness that all go together in the picture of someone who has dampness, and it makes them a little bit stickier with others. It makes them a little bit more codependent. It makes them latch on to others. And I have always been this picture of dampness. My life has been about draining my dampness in a healthy way, and then still having enough juiciness and enough connection and reaching out enough and plugging into my community just enough where it's nourishing me but not fueling me.
Yeah, when it becomes the fuel. Because when you are someone that doesn't have your center or yourself, and you are always externally focused, everything is like, what does my audience say about me? What does this guy say about me? And it doesn't even always look like, how does everyone feel about me? It's so nuanced. It's like always just being in a conversation and focused on the other. Like it's no matter what, there's always another focus. There's not what I want, how I feel, what's going on with me. But I want to talk about like the coercive feeling of codependency that I'm really now acutely aware of is when women feel like they're being empathetic or they're caring, but it's really to have their needs met and feel safe. And there's friendships that I've been in that have been like this. There's people that I know, and I'm sure that I've been like this at points in time in my life. I'm not saying that I'm not, but that once you are out of the codependency or you see it clearly, it's so icky to be in that relationship because you're like, I know you don't genuinely care about me from a full cup. You care about me from this like hunger. And there's this hunger siphoning energy that codependency now feels like to me that I'm so like disgusted by. That's so hard to be with.
Yeah. When you start to feel the ick, it's a sign that you're getting healthier.
Yeah.
When you start to feel the ick in those relationships with others and within yourself. Sometimes I feel the ick where I'm like, oh, I'm actually not asking enough questions for like within this conversation about the other person. Yes. How about you do better? You know, and it's this constant awareness.
Yeah.
And bringing yourself back to, oh yeah, I'm teetering on that edge of I'm getting too into this conversation with this person because they're focusing on me and I'm liking it a little bit too much and I'm not bringing that balance and that conscious balance and coming back to your presence and heart and awareness of what am I genuinely curious about within this person? How can I now shift the focus to them and give them that genuine curiosity, not siphoning of I'm just going to ask you a question so that you feel like I asked you something.
Yes.
That's kind of the cure. And you just always, when you have this history of codependency, you just have to be aware of it.
Yeah.
And I just think it stems from this deep loneliness in childhood. I can't tell you how lonely I felt my whole childhood. That is the one word I'd use to describe it. Not that I didn't have my parents around me, but I guess being an only child and the way my parents didn't see me and were so in their own stuff. And so, of course, in relationships now, when someone sees me, I'm like, oh my God. And I have to try to not take it in from this place of emptiness. I have to fill myself so that I'm not coming into relationship with the emptiness that will then vortex everything around it and then vortex and swallow that person. I have to make sure that I'm not swallowing those around me. I'm full, and then I'm also practicing curiosity with them. I think curiosity is such an antidote.
Huge. I think, and I'm usually the opposite. So like you're the friend that's like full, like, you know, talking, and I'm the one that's asking the questions. I'm the one that's like,
you are
self-abandonment. I'm the one that's like ignoring who I am in situations. So I've had to come out of that being like, I'm worthy of taking up space. I'm worthy of being heard, because if I feel like someone isn't care, that is like my thing. I'm like watching people so fucking closely, men, women, whoever. And I'm like, oh, as soon as I can tell them check out, I'm like, we're done. Not talking about myself. And it doesn't mean I'm done forever, but I'm like, oh, I'm going to move on.
Yes.
And also there's the part of me that searches for that to confirm my belief of that.
100%.
No one cares about me. No one cares about what I have to say. No one wants to make space for me. No one is going to be there for me. And so I'm like scanning everybody.
Yeah.
And just like, oh, they don't care. They don't care. They don't care. And then I'm like, let's make it about them, because that's how I can maintain connection.
Yes.
That is my hungry ghost, connection.
Hungry ghost. Have you talked about that on your podcast before?
Not yet. I should.
Can you define that?
Yeah, the hungry ghost is like a Taoist principle, and it's basically the shadow that we have within us that if it's not fed or met will run us for our entire lives. It will be the hungry ghost that lives within us that will like just be like invisible and managing our whole life without our conscious awareness to it. So mine is my desire for connection. I will self-abandon. I will do anything for connection. I will used to like use my body for connection. I used to just do anything for relationships to maintain connection because it feeds me.
Is it connection or is it safety that you're looking for?
That's a good one. I don't know. I should explore that. Connection doesn't always feel safe for me, but it feels alive.
Got it.
And it feels definitive of who I am.
Yeah.
So if we're connecting and we are connecting, I know who I am. I know what's going on. I know how to be. And there probably is a safety to that. You're right. So it's like a safety in us connecting. And then also it just feeds me. Like, I'm like, if you're a lonely girl that's grown up with parents that didn't connect with you, look at you, see you, you want that. Like, your cellular being wants to be connected to people.
Yes.
So I had my desire for connection running everything in my life. And so that desire for connection would be me ignoring my own needs or asking everyone questions because I didn't feel like I was worthy, because it's easy to get connection if someone else is talking.
Yes. Yeah. And if they're excited to be around you because they're getting that
if I'm the
from
perfect
you.
audience.
That's why we are the quote perfect or not so perfect match.
I know.
And that's why when we first started getting close, I told you we can't be best friends because I'm not well enough yet to.
She's at that, you guys.
I swear to God, I was like, I'm so sorry, but I recognize that you are the opposite puzzle piece to my form of codependency. I could easily get caught up in you asking me all these questions and paying all this attention to me. And you could easily get caught up in me needing you because you serve that for me.
Yep.
And we just, at this point, I mean, I actually think I'm a lot healthier. I think
you're very healthy.
We could be best friends now.
We're best friends now. But it's also like, and I'm so glad, and I recognize that, and it's been so beautiful because now it's not like I'm like, I have a boundary. I'm not like vocal about it, but there is a feeling that, and I've never felt this with you, but I'm just saying there's a feeling that I get when I'm with women that have that tendency that I now feel where I can be mindful.
Yes.
And I'm so proud of myself for being that, because like I'm friends with big, powerful women that have a fucking lot to say, that have a lot of opinions, that are, famous in our world or whatever. And so it's very easy to be someone that's like always holding an audience, and I'm the perfect audience. And so now I can just be a little bit more mindful of like, how does it feel in my body? Like, was I able to take up space? Like, was I able to say how I felt? Was I able to be myself? Was I able to like express how I'm feeling and just sort of self-adjust in the moment, take space, come back, try again. And sometimes you just can't be friends with people if they're not going to let you take up space, just because maybe I'm not healed enough to be competent enough to take up space.
Well, it's interesting because when we first started getting close, like I said, I recognized that energy in you, and maybe you recognize that energy in me too.
I didn't until you said it, but yeah, I see it.
And then I noticed as we spent time together, I kind of had this, okay, is this safe? Am I going to replay this cycle that I just broke with women in my life that was very painful to break?
Yep.
Am I going to repeat it with Krista?
Yeah.
And as we hung out, and it would be 7:30 and you'd be like, oh, I just felt it in my body that I'm done hanging out tonight. I'll see you later. I love you so much.
Yes.
And you were able to break away from me. And I was like, oh, wait, she's actually setting her boundaries in the sweetest, healthiest. You weren't looking for my response to that. Yeah. You weren't checking if I was upset if you were leaving early. You've done so much work yourself and were so non-attached to it and just asserted your needs in a loving way. And that felt so good to me because I know I would have easily pushed it of like, oh my God, well, let's hang out till like later. Let's not leave.
You'd be like, stay in my bed.
100%. I would just get too attached. And so because you were you were modeling safety in our friendship because you've done the work, I was able to also meet you as my new identity where I have done the work.
Yep.
And that is the power of choosing friendships and continuing to evolve and making new friendships with people who are on the same path and doing the same therapy and talking about these things. Because if you choose to engage in a friendship with someone who is not actively doing that, and when you test those boundaries, you're able to be mushy with them and damp, you are going to perhaps show up as your old identity. You need someone who can hold the vision for you and themselves of the healthier identity so that you can step into them and model it.
Obsessed. Yeah, it's funny, the dampness now I can see in my life how it used to be, where now I'm like a boundary bitch. Like I'm not like mean, I'm just very clear. It's almost like I have to be because I'm so porous. If I get around someone that like is like you or someone that like is just super bright and like has that, I'm like, oh, like I will lose myself. And I love myself too much. Now I'm like, I fucking can't. Like I have to be better boundaried. And also too, when I'm in relationship with people, I don't fuck around. Like I'm deeply in relationship with people. Like it just is very meaningful to me. So it's not like I can be like, yeah, cool, we can just be cool. Yes. I'm not like a just be cool person. I'm like in it. So I also have to have boundaries because I'm like, if I don't, then I'm going to completely just be in service to that person. But I think one of the things that you have and that I have that's a non-negotiable for me in friendships, and that I think for our audience might be as well, is self-awareness. Yeah. Like it's almost like what's beautiful about the inner critic from an IFS perspective is that the inner critic helps us see where we could grow and helps us have self-awareness. obviously the inner critic is also keeping us small, is also critical, is also judging ourselves. But it's really beautiful to be in relationships with people that are self-aware.
My inner critic at this stage in my life, I'd say the last 3 years, has served such a beautiful purpose for me. And I still need her in those situations in relationship when I start to respond to someone's porousness with an old pattern. And I love that you described it like that, because that's exactly how I feel. And it's very palpable to even use. I also had this dream back in the day when I first started this journey of self-awareness and dampness, and realizing that the codependency stemmed from my family. Because now that I have the inner critic showing me the dynamic within me and my friendships and relationships, I was then also able to see the deep enmeshment in my family, in my parent and their siblings relationships, in my parents' relationship with each other. They were literally...
Can you describe enmeshment?
I would love to give a proper definition.
Or even just what was enmeshed about their dynamic as an example?
It's this complete reliance and expectation on the other. It's almost this agreement that you've entered to meet one another's needs in different ways. And it's this continuous dynamic of that. If you've ever read the book Courage to be Disliked, they talk about separation of tasks and how essentially it's almost a book about codependency. But essentially the key to healthy interpersonal relationships is to constantly audit what is my task, what is their task, and to only complete your own tasks, to not take on another's, and to not expect another to take on one of your tasks.
I think that's huge for women, because we oftentimes have this unconscious list that we don't communicate with men, and men are not as psychically attuned. They're not going to know what's on our list.
Yes.
And so I think especially as women, where we secretly have expectations for them to fulfill the list that they have no idea about, it's really important to do that. So I love that.
I also wanted to mention, before I finish the enmeshment and the family and the dream, the way that you are now able to assert those boundaries because you love yourself. Because I used to not love myself, and because I used to have such an unstable sense of self-identity, when someone would set a boundary with me like that, I would be so offended.
Yes,
and I would actually be repelled by women who would set those boundaries, because I would take it as in, oh, but they don't like me. Oh, and they're doing that on purpose. And it was almost, my mom had this dynamic with her female friends, and I would see it where she would often think that they were kind of out to get her or slighting her in some way, when it was really her sense of self, and it was just really maybe a boundary being set. And so I used to, back in, 5-10 years ago, I would have responded to you setting your boundaries of, hey, it's 7:30. I know we said we were going to hang out later, but I got to go home. I would have been sad about that, created a story about that, created a resentment dynamic, maybe even competed in some way with you because that happened.
Oh yeah. You'd be like, well, I have something this week too.
Yeah, or
Maybe.
I don't even know. I don't think I would have done that.
I don't think I
would have come from a very small, I would have made myself then very small and resentful, and
you might have been weird the next time we hung out.
Or I might have, gone even more clingy, That's probably more what it was, like a fear of abandonment kind of vibe. But now, because we're both at a healthier place, I can respond to those boundaries. So just want to say that if you are a woman who has experienced that in your friendships, where boundaries sometimes feel hurtful to you and you're not understanding why, it's really looking at your deep sense of self-worth and realizing that that person is only setting that boundary because they love themselves so much and want to show up beautifully for themselves and for you the next time and for the whole world. And if you love yourself enough to recognize that and to check in with yourself in that moment, maybe you also need to go home. Maybe you also need some alone time. Yes. It's probably not aligned. You're probably actually relying on them too much in that moment, and it would do you better to go home and be with yourself and recalibrate. But anyway, so I saw the enmeshment in my family, and the way that one of my parents and their sibling specifically have a very enmeshed relationship, because the childhood dynamic was the older sibling taking care of the younger and parenting the younger and acting as the father and the surrogate, like, husband for the mother, like kind of.
You want to talk about this dynamic? I'll fucking go in. The devouring mother.
Yeah, he was kind of
substitute for the husband, so rampant.
Because my grandmother had a very difficult relationship with her husband, my grandfather, at times. I think she looked to her eldest son to kind of be the surrogate husband. And I think a lot of people see in a lot of different cultures, this is common. You know, the mom is like very attached to one of the sons.
And this is why men are avoidant nowadays.
Yeah.
Because it's devouring energy that just like they're never satisfied. The mother's never satisfied. So men cannot commit because they feel like it's going to be that same dynamic with their wife.
Yes. Yes. And so he was used to having his needs devoured in that way because he had to meet her needs. And then he just naturally stepped into that pattern by meeting his siblings' needs, my parent. And essentially now that dynamic still takes place where they are used to meeting each other's needs. And the cost of him meeting his siblings' needs is that his sibling has to be there for him in other ways that are not healthy. So I'm trying to be vague about it just out of respect, but I think it's a dynamic that a lot of you guys can recognize and probably resonates. And so I had this dream that I was looking at my parents from a bird's eye view in our family living room. And the fact that it was in our home says a lot because my parents were very reclusive. They didn't really maintain any friendships. They kind of got very codependent in their marriage and stopped getting their needs met elsewhere through other relationships. And that is literally where I could have gone in my relationship. And it was such a lesson for me. And it's why I try so hard now to make friendships. And they would just always be in the house. And I would always be in the house. And I wasn't allowed to have friends over because my mom didn't want people around. She kind of became very reclusive. And we never had gatherings there. And so the home was this place that felt very safe to me, yet also very unsafe and lonely and isolated. And so I became, and that's still my coping mechanism, is I still isolate.
Yes, you do.
I really do when I'm going through it. And when I'm not reminded that, oh my God, there's community out there that I can just easily go out and connect and I'll feel better. So I had this dream. I was a bird's eye view. I saw them on the couch and there was a swamp all around the floor and their legs were stuck in this swampy, dark fluid. Dampness. And they were stuck, just like they were stuck on the couch. I mean, my childhood, we just watched TV. We sat on the couch. We didn't go anywhere. So there was a man in the dream and he was like a medicine man. And he came to me and he said, families like that need bear medicine. And bear medicine is what they refer to angelica root as, and also osha root, which are two very damp draining, damp transforming herbs. They have these potent aromatics that come in almost like how pine sol comes in and freshens up a room, in a sense, a stuffy room that has a lot of bacteria and dampness. You're using the essential oils and the pine sol to come in and clear everything, and all of a sudden your nose is clear and the dampness and the congestion is gone. They are these herbs that do that within the body and the spirit. And angelica root specifically, it's a digestive bitter, so it helps to clear dampness within the gut, within the mind, because dampness in the gut will create dampness in the mind and the spirit and the heart. And it is an herb that I believe is very crucial for codependency. Yeah, damp draining herbs have helped me from a physical sense to clear that mirror of the emotional codependency and dampness.
So you said angelic root. What's the second one?
Osha root.
Osha root. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Osha root. That's more of a lung. There's this gut-lung axis, this gut-lung oral microbiome axis that I talk about. I have one of my formulas, microbiome guard. I think I'm going to probably change it to like lung guard or something because it's more of a lung formula, but it's made for the gut-lung microbiome. When you have a respiratory illness or bug that is manifesting not just as dampness in the lungs, but also as dampness in the gut. You remember during COVID, they were saying how a lot of people were coming into the hospital with just stomach symptoms, not realizing that then they would do an x-ray and they would have the glass pattern in the lungs and they totally had like a silent COVID thing. That was how I knew my parents had COVID. They didn't have any lung symptoms. They only had digestive symptoms. They told me they had food poisoning for like 2 weeks. And it turned out to be COVID. But in Chinese medicine, there's a lung and large intestine direct connection. So anytime there's dampness in the lung, there's also dampness in the large intestine and gut, and vice versa. So clearing something one place clears it everywhere, essentially, which also translates to the emotional and spiritual.
So in that dynamic, you felt lonely at home. You had the enmeshment. You learned your codependency. And what I want to explore then is through this journey, you know, I've done this and you've done this, is how we can meet our own needs.
Yeah.
Like, because I feel like so many women can relate to so much of this, whether it's friendships, relationships, in the home, but it is how do we learn to meet our own needs? And what would you say to how you've learned to meet your own needs coming from that space?
Spending time with yourself, cultivating a friendship with yourself, not spending time with yourself scrolling on your phone, right? Which is fun too. Sometimes that's cool. You're like just vibing, laughing, listening to music, whatever. But spending time with yourself as if you're a real person. What would you do with a real person, right?
Wow.
Would you take them out for a lunch? Would you dance with them and be silly in your kitchen and like make a smoothie and whatever? Would you, I don't know, would you take a trip with them and spend this time maybe drawing at a cafe, whatever it is? And so I've learned to kind of take myself on friendship dates and treat myself like a real friend. Like I deserve time, like I deserve to be seen by me. And that's helped a lot. I would say I've made the most strides in my growth since I started solo traveling and just spending more time away from my day-to-day where it's much easier to ignore myself.
Wow, I love that. How would you treat a real person?
Yeah.
Is so crazy. I feel like too, when I thought about like, how do I meet my own needs? It's like, okay, if I was thinking about being the child that didn't have her needs met, it's like, what would I redo? And it's actually very simple. It's like, are you sleeping enough? Like, what would the mother do for the child?
Yes.
Get you really good rest. Eat really nourishing foods. Like, allow you to feel and express how you're feeling. Like, allow you to like physically feel safe in your home. And there's just like some of the basics are some of the most important. But I think for so many people, they don't really understand what their needs are, and they don't really understand like how to even acknowledge them or be with them. It's almost like the need for safety comes first, where they're like, okay, I need to feel safe first, and then I can recognize my needs.
Yeah.
How did you come to terms with recognizing that you had needs even? Because I'm even thinking about this as I'm processing. How did I recognize I had needs?
Thank God for my husband, honestly.
Yeah.
I actually, for me, initially, I needed the nervous system co-regulation of someone who was healthy and could hold the space to create the safety in my nervous system where then I could see, oh, wait, I have needs. I'm not okay. I don't know if maybe I would have come to that conclusion faster if I didn't have him to create that safety for me and I had to get it out of the mud, you know? Like, I don't know if that...
I could be like in jail.
Yeah, God
my
knows.
girl would be an addict.
Yeah. No, seriously. But also at the same time, I don't want to discredit myself and say that maybe I would. I'm so resilient that maybe I would have just been like, you know what? I have to do this myself.
Yeah.
And I find that now when I solo travel and take the space. But there was many ways in which the relationship that I've had with my husband, because he's such a sweet soul and unfortunately did self-sacrifice for a while to help me feel safe. He allowed me to feel like I was lovable, like I was safe and like someone could unconditionally love me, because I never felt unconditional love in childhood. It was conditional. It was, if I can perform and be the loudest person in the room and be an amazing singer and get straight A's and get every scholarship possible and be hyper functional and be talented at everything and take up so much space, maybe I will meet the conditions of being loved. And so to have someone love me unconditionally, in so many ways, I feel like Nick helped to reparent me. And that's whether that comes from a relationship or a safe friendship or a family member or a mentor. My doctor did this for me as well, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. Mm-hmm. I have to say, it's like Nick helped me get through a hurdle. And then I met my mentor, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, and she will call me and be like, I know you're not okay. You're not answering my texts for 2 weeks now. What are you doing? I know how you're feeling. Let me tell you how you're feeling right now. And guess what? You're going to do this and you're going to do this. And I love you and I see you and you're amazing. Mm-hmm. And not in the way where she's building me up and saying you're amazing because I'm telling you you are, in the way that she's like, I see you because I am you. And here's the story you're telling yourself right now. And here is the archetype within you. Mm-hmm. Right now you're experiencing weekend Wendy, she would tell me, where on the weekend, because you're not being hyper productive and performing and working, you feel worthless. And so you're hiding in your home and you're beating yourself up, and weekend Wendy is hurting you. And so you're going to talk to weekend Wendy and you're going to tell her, you better get out. I'm laughing at you, weekend Wendy. You're wrong. And she would teach me how to talk to essentially these parts of myself. Mm-hmm. It's like parts work, what you do. And just having her see me, even when I first went to her office, she looked at me and said, you're an athlete. She didn't say, you're amazing, you can do this. She just said, you're an athlete. I can't wait for you to realize it. That's awesome. You're an athlete. That's great. And now I feel like an athlete. It took me years to meet that vision, but just having people around you who hold the vision for you, but don't sit next to you and do the work for you.
Totally.
They just hold the vision and never stop because it's an unconditional love of, I know you can do this. They don't see you as a victim. They don't say, oh my God, she's going through a hard time. She can't do this. I don't know what that's enmeshment.
Yes.
That's enmeshment. Over worrying about a person, talking about their problem over and over again, whether it's to them or others. It's, oh my gosh, I just don't know what they're going to do. They're feeling this way. I don't think they can do it. It's almost gossipy.
Yes.
Whereas a person who's holding the vision is like, oh, you got this. You're good. I see you as healed already. You're going to figure it out. And at the same time, I see that you're struggling and I'm with you.
And there's in the situation with Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, it's like, it has nothing to do with me.
Yes.
It's like, you're an athlete.
Yeah.
You've got this.
Uh-huh.
You're here. You can do it. And it means nothing about me if you become an athlete or not.
Exactly.
It's just what I see for you. And I think that's why I love working with people one-on-one, because it's like being in that process for people where you can hold the vision, especially for someone that's close to them, but not so close. Because once you get really close is kind of when it gets a little muddy, where you're like, okay, well, what is this? Because you're so close in relationship. You're like, what does that mean about me then? If she's an athlete, am I not an athlete? It's that type of thing that can be really, really hard.
And also she's so secure in herself.
Exactly.
That me being an athlete or not, even if I surpassed her athleticism, which is not
love
possible,
to see it, literally.
But even if I surpassed it, it wouldn't mean anything to her because she's so secure within herself.
Exactly.
So being able to somehow be blessed with people along my journey who had really strong, healthy nervous systems and could regulate themselves and then just look at me and be like, you're going to regulate too. You got this. I'm going to hold that vision for you. That was the greatest gift in my life.
Yeah, greatest. It's interesting too, hearing, and for people, when we think about parts work and we think about that hyperproductive part, it's like that hyperproductive part is often developed from childhood. So that part of you that's like 5 days a week, I'm super productive, I'm getting straight A's, I'm like building this like multi-million-dollar business, I've got this team, like I'm got this huge social media brand, is the same part of you that was young, that was like be a good singer, that was like get the scholarships, do all these things. So we have this, it's not Hungry Ghost essentially, but it's that subconscious part of us that we're unaware of that's still running the show.
Oh, it is.
And
there's no way I would have gone into being a public figure if I didn't have that original.
Oh my God, babe.
Like that's a manifestation of my codependency. And again, thank God for it. Got me to where I am today and also allowed me to help a lot of folks by.
Hey guys, your favorite influencers are all codependents.
It's so true.
It's factual.
There's no way.
Narcs, or I guess that's still the same thing.
It's the same thing. That's what I wanted to say earlier. Narcissism and codependency is a spectrum. Not saying the clinical narcissistic personality disorder where someone they cannot actually like feel, they don't have the capacity, right? There's some folks where I see them on TikTok. They're like, hey, I am a diagnosed narcissist. Ask me anything. And they're like, I just don't feel and I never will with any amount of therapy.
You watching those?
It's fascinating.
I'm obsessed.
I'm sick.
You're sick.
But
I would be too triggered.
That's a personality disorder, right? But we all have narcissistic traits within us, and our narcissistic traits are a response to unstable sense of self, low self-worth, not getting our needs met, right? So it's like, don't hate those narcissistic parts, just be aware of them. Yes. Cool. And then at the same time, the codependent parts are also stemming from the unstable sense of self, low self-worth, looking for it externally. The narcissist is looking for, or like the narcissistic part of us is looking for the validation externally, and the codependent is looking for the connection, validation externally. It's just manifesting in different ways. And I'm not perhaps using the right word in this, but let's say in our dynamics, you being the porous one, me being the one that's used to having to take up space to be seen, and you being willing to see me as the exchange, I would be more of the narcissist, you'd be more of the codependent in our dynamic. Yeah. Whereas in another dynamic with someone else, I would be more of the codependent and they'd be the narcissist. So until you clear that deeper root of the unstable sense of self and low self-worth and esteem, you will play either role in different relationships in your life at different times. And so sometimes you'll think you're the victim, and sometimes you'll be the one who's taking up too much space and being an ass.
Yep.
Okay, I've gotten so many questions about this. I did a reel on my continuous glucose monitor learnings a while back. I wanted to just update you. I have continued to use it in my postpartum period. I am using Veri. It's a great tool to find personalized insights on what works best for your body, and really honestly quit the diet trends forever because I'm just realizing what works for my specific body. So you will pair this continuous glucose monitor with an easy to use app. And in just 14 days, you can understand how to break unhelpful habits, build new ones, improve your metabolic health through nutrition and exercise, sleep, and stress management. Honestly, I didn't know how stress impacts my glucose levels. I was kind of shocked. I was having a really stressful week a couple weeks ago, and I noticed that my blood glucose level was freaking spiking. And I was like, oh my goodness. So I've been just so much more mindful, just using my tools, my practices to manage my stress. And it's worked. It has totally improved. And I see it in my app. What's also so freaking cool. So Veri has AI meal logging now. So this means that you can take a picture of your meal and their AI will autofill your meal log, including ingredients and portion sizing. What? Very cool, very of the future. And I'm obsessed with that because like in the past, I've had to like input every ingredient and blah, blah, blah and measure. And it's so annoying. So this is unbelievable, so easy. So I'm excited for you to try a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor. And Veri is an incredible company, an app that I think will be just a perfect match for you starting this journey. It makes it so easy, and I'm learning a ton. So if you want to find the right foods and habits for your body while improving your health, give Veri a shot with our exclusive $30 off with the code VSM-almost30. And check out the link in the description notes to purchase directly from their website. The website is veri.co, veri.co. You can use the code VSM-almost30. That's VSM-almost30 for $30 off. Okay, been getting questions about my skin and what I am doing while in postpartum period, breastfeeding, all the things. I am taking BioSil and I'm so freaking excited to talk to you about this. I take it once in the morning, once at night. It's a tiny little capsule. It's like the size of a penny, not even. But this is a collagen generator. All products from BioSil contain the patented CHOSA complex. And y'all, it's working. And I'm so freaking thankful. I've been taking it for about 6 weeks now. So just to give you a little background on collagen, if you're not familiar, it's really important for your skin because it gives its natural support and firmness, especially to your face. And BioSil is a premium product that helps you generate this collagen. It helps you protect the collagen that you already have as well. So they've been doing this for over 25 years and $25 million of research went into this. It is clinically proven to work for healthier hair, skin, and nails. It has been shown to increase skin elasticity by 89% and decrease the appearance of fine lines and wrinkles by 30%. What? I've been loving it. I've seen actual results. I have not done any fillers or Botox or whatever to my face in it's been like a year and change. And this is just, honestly, it's given me a lot of confidence. And I just love the way that my skin looks. This is a vegan formula. BioSil doesn't contain any collagen from animals and it's GMO free. This is safe for pregnant moms to be or when breastfeeding. Amazing. You can buy this online or on BioSil's website, which is biosil.beauty, or you can find it at your local retailer. So listen, this is a supplement, but like it is a part of my beauty routine, baby. I'm excited for you to try. It works for men and women. You can read more about the research on BioSil's website, biosil.beauty. So do as I do and start BioSil today. Go to biosil.beauty and get 30% off your first order with code almost30. 30% off is pretty major. Take advantage of it now. Biosil.beauty. Use the code almost30 for 30% off.
Yeah, it's always a balance. It's been interesting now that I take up so much more space in the world and in my relationships. it is almost like I'm balancing things and I have to re-meet friends and I have to like recalibrate our dynamic, because if you met me 5, 7 years ago, 10 years ago, the person that I was completely different. And the way that I was in relationship to you was completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And so now being someone that's not going to be small, not going to self-abandon, not going to do all these things, it can be hard for friends. Like I've lost friends because you kind of change how it is. Like if you're used to me building you up, asking about you 24/7, only caring about your life, diminishing my own power, diminishing my own worth to make you feel better. And then I come in and I'm like, no, I've got to leave at 7. Like it's just what it is. And I'm going to actually talk about myself. You can lose people. And I think it can be hard and sad, but I had one friendship end at a certain time recently. And I was like, this is the last chess piece of it. You know who it is. And I'm like, this is it. I'm like, this was the last person that would not be okay with me taking up space in our dynamic. And I could feel it. And I'm like, I love them. It's all good. But it just couldn't survive the real me.
Yes, because you have to clear the things that are tentacling to that identity, that past identity, and that part of you that was willing to self-sacrifice in order to fully step into the new identity of you that will not fully self-sacrifice and that is securely attached, right? And sometimes hopefully those people we can re-meet them, right? When they've done their work, and we're not healthy for them either, by the way.
Say more.
I had a friendship where I realized that I was always going to be the main character to her, even when I got healthier and was trying to put her on the stage, right? And she actually was not ready to take up space. And so it only aggravated her when I would then try to, be more of the porous one and the one that was like, hey, I'm asking you questions. What are you going to do with this? Let me help you here. Let's do this. I see you as this. I see you as this amazing woman. And she just wasn't there. But I realized that in order to get there, she needed the main character out of her life so that she could become her own main character. And it was the greatest service I could ever do to remove myself from our dynamic so that she could become her own main character, because she didn't understand it too at the time and didn't realize that I was doing that for our highest good. It actually hurt her. But it was only through that hurt that she would then be like, I'm going to become the main character out of spite. And then you kind of have to be the villain in their story so that they initially have something to fight against. They're fighting for initially in spite of you. And then all of a sudden they realize that they're fighting for themselves and they can make it.
I mean, being someone's villain is just...
You have to be okay with being the villain in other people's stories, because other people have been the villain in yours. And look how much that helped you at times.
And also it's like you will be the villain if you're your own individual person.
It's codependent to try to force someone else's view of you and to make them not feel like you're the villain and to people please and meet all of their needs. You're going to be people's villain. It's codependent to feel like their view of you should be your view of you.
Yes. And that you should control how they feel or how they want to see you or how they see the situation.
It's hard, but let them see you as the villain. Let people be, quote, wrong about you or just have their own experience of you, because maybe that's correct in their experience. Maybe you're not perfect. Thinking that you're perfect is the narcissistic side of the codependent. Because you have to always be perfect to everybody, to be liked, to get a need met, to have perfect relationships and not rock the boat to people please. Because underneath that, you're saying, I have this inferiority complex that's actually a superiority complex.
Wow. Yeah. I feel like that's the only way you can get anywhere in life too, is by being the villain in other people's stories, because it's like, then you're able to be more of yourself. Then you're able to be clear about who you are. And then you're like, oh, that's interesting that you have that perspective, but like, I know how I feel about myself. And it's interesting in relationships because you have to play that dance where you want to hold space and listen to someone's perspective of you. And then you also, it's like the fine line of like, how much of that is mine and how much of that is theirs?
50-50.
That's hard. I know.
And that is the real work. Can I now hold space for someone else who sees me and is painting me in their story? Let them have that story and that experience of me. Be able to be self-critical enough to own the parts that are true and the role that I've played and take responsibility for the things that I've done in that dynamic, while also being able to leave the other half and say, that's not true about me. I'm not going to internalize that. I'll let them have that, but I'm not going to assert that that's me. I know that part wasn't my fault. I know that perhaps in my story, they just can't see my intention behind it and they're not ready to see it. Relationship is such a dance, like you said.
It's crazy. And I know you were talking about that a little bit last year about intimacy and being in relationships and like how it's been such a lesson for you. What has been your journey in really being able to be truly intimate in relationships? Because when you're codependent, you think you're being intimate, but you're not.
Yeah.
Because you're not your own person.
You're not your own person, and because you're not your own person, you can't see that person.
Yes.
You know?
Because they're a fuel for you.
Yeah.
They're a means to an end.
And a person who is whole and okay within themselves and knows this is me, that's them. Mm-hmm. Like codependency is this break within the barrier. It's like leaky gut personified. So it's not being able to recognize what is myself and what is other, and it's enmeshing the two. And then that creates this lack of intimacy and lack of polarity in relationships, because I can only really love you and want every bit of you if you are fully you and you're not me. So yeah, in terms of building intimacy, it would kind of be the same answer of just doing that work to really assert who you are, spending that time with yourself first, make sure that you're connecting with yourself, doing the hard things, saying the no's, but also saying the yeses that allow you to go deeper into the experience of who you are, really living your life, allowing the people that you're intimate with to fully live their life and respecting their autonomy. Oh my God, granting people their autonomy is huge, even if you don't like it, because a lot of the times the things that you don't like about other people or you don't agree with are what actually make you like them. You wouldn't like them if they agreed with everything that you said. You just wouldn't.
That's what Esther Perel says. The thing that attracts you usually becomes the thing that you hate in the end.
Oh, in a romantic relationship?
Mm-hmm. So I would say like in previous relationships, men have been attracted to my confidence or my independence or my ability to speak my truth or whatever, which I obviously end up losing in the relationship. But it's like, because then that becomes the thing that they hate because they wish they had that in themselves. So I would attract men that weren't as confident, that didn't really speak up. And I would kind of be that balance. And then it would be like, why are you speaking up? Why are you
because
doing
they
these
were
things?
attracting a teacher.
Exactly.
Sometimes we attract relationships that are meant to teach us and not meant to be forever.
Yep. That's what I think about. It's been beautiful in dating. And I'm so grateful to God because it's just these beautiful karmic relationships that are just teaching me so much. It's like, oh, and you feel that feeling. Karmic relationships are so interesting because that's the chemistry. When you meet someone and you're like, oh, like we have a vibe.
I'm a little too obsessed. Have you heard Dr. Drew talk about this?
Yes.
I know Dr. Drew's a little controversial for whatever reason.
I don't know. I don't know why.
I don't know. When I've talked about him before, some folks have flagged it. So I'm talking about the concept, not the person. Okay. So he says that when you have a history of dealing with a narcissist / being a codependent, you will be in a room and someone will walk in that exactly matches your wounding and the person that will perfectly re-traumatize you, he says it'll feel like a lightning bolt. Mm-hmm. They will glow. Mm-hmm. You will feel like you have to talk to that person. You have to engage with them. You're instantly BFFs. Like you just hit it off. And we think of that as chemistry. Yeah. And he says that the healthiest way to go about relationships is to go for the person in the room that kind of glows. You kind of like them, but they're not all that exciting. But you logistically have a lot in common and could make a great friendship.
Yeah, or relationship.
100%. Yeah, don't go for the lightning bolts. Because
I've had that. Oh my God, I had one where I was like, I literally felt in my body. I was like, ooh. Like, I was like, oh my God. And then I'm like, this is not okay.
Yeah.
Like, I could feel it and it was, whatever. But I'm like, oh, this is like unhealthy. But yeah, the chemistry, the codependency, and it is karmic because you're trying to heal. Yes. You know, there's an aspect of you that's like, I came here to heal. I came here to do shit. And I want to heal through relationship. I want to heal through partnership, which is so fascinating. But yeah, everyone has that situation where we met someone, woman or man, where we're like, oh my God, I'm obsessed.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed.
Yeah. And does that mean that we shouldn't trust our gut instincts or let our intuition lead us? It's knowing when butterflies are a stress response. Like when it's that physical, visceral, oftentimes that's more of a stress response. That's more of a recognizing of a pattern or a dynamic that's comfortable and chaotic, because most of us grew up comfortable in chaos. If you're resonating with this conversation, you grew up comfortable in chaos, I'm sure. And so we're recognizing what feels good. We're like recognizing the roller coaster that we're used to riding. And sometimes riding the roller coaster and having the chaos feels a lot better to our nervous system than safety. Safety actually feels dangerous to us and boring.
And boring.
Boring.
Boring is what it is.
So I think it's a divine balance of understanding that the visceral lightning bolt butterfly reaction could very well be the stress response and the childhood wounding, and being very self-aware, asking questions about that, doing the work, being able to recognize certain things in another person. Are they taking up too much space, or am I feeling too porous around them, or vice versa? Am I taking up too much space and they're fulfilling this audience-like need for me? And auditing that early on and just going into it. Don't go into it blind. Don't go into it without that healthy sense of questioning.
Yeah, I love that. And it's also like, if we think about the butterflies, or we think about the lightning bolt, or we think about that feeling, whenever you have that, it makes me actually leave my body. So I'm like, whoa. I'm like, it's weird because it would make you feel grounded. You think it would make you feel grounded or more in touch, because you're like, oh, I'm feeling a sensation, but I feel like I leave my body. So if I notice myself kind of leaving my body, my energy's going to them, where I'm like, okay, let's fucking go. How are we going to do this? Like, the more I can stay in my body is what I've noticed with dating, especially, is like the healthier the relationship will be. Like, how can I just be in my own experience in my body? And I've had dates where I've like completely left the building in my body, and I'm like, whoa, that was me just in an old dynamic and pattern. We love that part of me, but I've been in the healthiest partnerships when I can be like fully here.
And maybe true attraction is this mutual admiration and warmth.
Yeah.
And the leaving the body butterflies is, like you said, your energy actually going to another person.
Yes.
Like they're on the other side of the room, and you can't stop putting your energy over there. You're not able to solidify self. And whenever you are not able to exist within self and feel that solid sense of self, and you're going too much to them, that's when you know that would be a pattern where you would do that quite often.
Dude, I know. It's crazy. That's been such a balance now, is like, what is chemistry and what is, now I know for me, the chemistry is the karmic piece, where I'm like, I have something to learn here. There's a growth opportunity for me, which I can, which actually makes it beautiful. So I can use each relationship with men as like the mirror for my growth, or the mirror for where I could have more wholeness, have more self-love. It's like, oh, I'm adjusting how I feel about X subject because I know they're not comfortable with it. Or I'm changing my opinion about this because I don't want to talk about this with them. Or I'm making it all about them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. When you're changing your opinion, that's such a good red flag. This is like a list of things to look out for.
Yes, when you're changing your opinion about, like, I think about, sometimes I've been on dates where they've said something about something. I'm like, if this was like my friends, I would go the fuck off.
Oh my God, yeah. You and I arguing about protein last night.
24/7.
I'm
just
obsessed.
Everything. And yeah, I would just be like, blah, blah, blah. But when I'm like with a man, where I'm like, you kind of recognize, you're like, oh, what is this? Like, where can I be? And it's interesting too, because for women, there's a part of me that's like, this is safety. So it's actually about me so I'm self-abandoning in that situation, and it's about safety, but it's not only emotional, but it's actually physical for me. So there is that part of us as women that's like, I actually have to agree, because if I don't agree, I'm unsafe, not only emotionally, but physically.
Yes.
Which is so scary and makes it so much harder.
Yes. It's going to feel unrelated, but maybe you'll understand where I'm making the connection. This is kind of the same way I feel about putting yourself out there on the internet as a public figure. You actually have to create a cardboard cutout version of yourself. And even if you're trying to be as authentic as possible, you're trying to really just be like, I don't care. I'm going to put the most authentic version of myself on the internet, which is always what I try to do. I've realized that no matter what, you will always be contorting yourself in some way, because it is actually not safe. It's not physically safe, emotionally safe to not do that. Because if you don't people please in some way, you will not be safe, because you are exposing yourself to a large amount of people with all different opinions, and it's actually just not physically safe. So you can't, I wish I could be that person who could just truly not care, but that's just not how my nervous system is wired.
Yeah, talk to me about that journey in social media, because you're someone that's shared so much openly about your life and your relationships and your journey and your processing. And it is something I have to check, because that codependent part of me is like, of course, I took the perfect career. I interview people. I make it all about other people. This is my perfect outlet for my codependency. Also then, doing what I do online. And for you, it's like your main character.
Yes.
You created this career from that place.
Unknowingly. It's wild. Yeah. I realized that initially, while so much of what I started doing, because it was accidental, I think it was a little bit more heart-centered for sure.
And
I think I'm really lucky in that sense that I've always, no matter what, through all of this, I've always had a really strong heart. I have the Leo heart, and that's one thing I can say about myself. As much as I can admit that I'm selfish at times and have to really watch that self-centeredness and need to really just own myself and be a little bit judgmental so that I can stay in line, I can also on the other side admit that I know I have a really good heart and really good intentions. And I didn't set out to become an influencer the way that people set out to become an influencer now. I did initially set out to just spread this information and get things out there to people and provide solutions. But also, if I want to be the most devil's advocate, I can say, what part of me needed to feel so special that I could do that I could be the person providing the answers and all of that. I can just constantly argue with myself over and over again as to why I was good for doing it and why I was bad for doing it. And the truth is both. In anything that we do, why does the person become this career? Like all of our careers and everything, we're always going to be playing out our childhood wounding in some way. So it's just having that awareness of both sides of it. And I think that I'm very grateful that I was able to put so much out there and definitely overshare in a codependent way parts of my life. I mean, I would share how I was dealing with trauma and my relationship with my mom, and people know a lot about me, more than I realize now was, quote, safe to share, right? But because I was overriding my nervous system because of that childhood wounding of needing to put things out there and perform, I ended up sharing really helpful but very private things about my life. And I think a lot of people were able to see themselves in my journey, see that I got healthier and that I got past so much of myself. And they were only able to see that because I overshared so much, because they knew the depths of how deep some of my stuff went and how much I was struggling, that they could see me come out the other side and could also find their own self-reflections through my reflections. I kind of would illuminate things for them as I was speaking out loud and processing out loud. And should I have often been processing out loud with a therapist? Yeah, and I was. But I was also processing out loud with my community on social media. And that served such a purpose. That was how I was meant to help for a long time. But I can also see the downsides of it and how it created some codependency. And now I don't feel as comfortable posting on the internet. I changed. I've gone through this interesting journey the last few years. I want to be more private. I don't have the same needs to have things met externally. And so I don't really feel as comfortable posting on my stories and on Instagram anymore. And people notice that. And I didn't post for the last 2 months. I've had a lot of stuff going on internally and I just don't feel comfortable. And I'll get comments from people who are so angry that I'm not posting and, oh my God, she disappeared. She needs to tell us what she's going through. And I kind of created that dynamic where I would tell people what I was going through and they got used to that. And that's not the healthiest for either of us, but at the same time, and it served a purpose at one point because it helped someone who needed to hear it. And so now I'm figuring out how to change that dynamic going forward and how I want to show up going forward in a more boundaried way that's still helpful. And I think my plan is to do that through my podcast, where I actually don't want it to be about me anymore. My goal is to platform people that can help my audience, because I helped for 10 years now. I gave so much of what I had to give, and I don't have much to give right now because I'm in a place of darkness and transition, and I'm about to step into a new chapter. And I do have connections to people who do have things to give. So my goal in the next chapter of my internet residency is to just put folks on the podcast, practitioners, people that can help people, not just through their public work, but through one-on-one, so that I can kind of show my audience how to be autonomous without me. Just like I'm literally infusing that into every piece of my life, wanting everyone in my life to be autonomous, wanting me to be autonomous. It's my codependency work is now stretching to my internet presence, which is really interesting.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's been beautiful to see, and I've been like behind the scenes witness to it, which has been the best. Just like, yeah, witnessing you in cocoon mode and in this like transition. And what I will say about the internet and, you know, people that do feel like they're like, just tell us what you're going through. As someone that went through a lot in the past couple years with, you know, my dad and divorce and whatever, everything else that I've been through behind the scenes, sometimes I don't know what's going on.
Exactly.
That was my whole thing. You know, people were like, why didn't you just tell us about your divorce, that you guys were having problems, whatever. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Okay. I'm trying to figure out my own sense of self, my own relationship.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out you know what I mean? It's like, I can't come to here and be like, I don't know what's happening in my life.
Yeah, it's not healthy.
It's not healthy. And it just, I need to process and figure it out first with my therapist, with people that I love. And there should be something where people have, I always see my life, you know, we're always at the center of our own freaking lives, like it or not, but I always see myself at the center of my life. And then I have rings of my relationships. Who's my first ring? Who's my second ring? Who's my third? It's like squads. A squad, B squad, C squad. Doesn't mean I don't love every squad, but it's like the people that are in my closest need the access of what's going on in my life intimately more than my F squad, which is my online internet world. Like you should have the right people in your life deserve access to the intimacy of your mind and your heart.
And I think it serves your community more for you to have processed and metabolized it, and then to have reflections, more broader, vaguer reflections about the overarching topics that they can also then continue to learn about and research in their own lives and find other resources for it. Like, let's say we're talking about codependency here, right? We're not necessarily being specific in situations that were so painful with people in our lives that forced us to see these things about ourselves, but we're just talking about the overarching dynamic of codependency. And now someone, instead of having every detail about how we came to this and being able to be in more of the enmeshed gossipy place about it, they can go out and find other resources about codependency that are beyond us, because we're not psychologists, we're not experts, we're just two gals chatting about it. And they can be autonomous in seeing if that's a factor in their lives. So it's actually more helpful to the broader folks and broader communities in your life to be more vague and metabolized about things, than to give the nitty-gritty details. Because when you're given the nitty-gritty details, then that's what people focus on, and it's too much access. It's too much. Then it's just a story and gossip, and it's like a soap opera. So it's not. It's just not healthy.
I think it feeds the part of people that don't really want to change, so they can like focus on the story rather than the actual tools for change. You know. So, and also, it's just not normal for us to voyeur on people's lives on the internet.
1,000%. And yet that's how we built a community.
For sure. For sure.
So it's half of the responsibility.
So much.
I've shared so much too. And
so
at the same time, again,
I've shared more. I'm just kidding. I was like, I've shared more than you.
And for some folks that really, the people that were meant to see those things, I'm sure it really helped a lot of people. I know for sure. I've gotten so many messages in my career of people saying, I can't believe you're sharing this at this moment. This is exactly what I'm going through. I couldn't even put it into words. And because you had talked about it in the way that you did, I finally have a better understanding of what I'm even feeling. So there's such a beauty in that, but it gets to be too much and it gets to be too big. And when your audience gets too big, it's just like, I had so much more fun when I had like 20,000 followers. You know, it's just too much. It's too much. And then you become a public figure and something for people to voyeur. There's not as much humanity about you. People, it's very like the whole idea of public figure / fame. I don't like to call it fame. I don't think it's fame, but like the whole concept of that is very disordered in general, which is why I more want to go in the direction of like platforming people who can talk about the topics that I know people can help and not making it about me, or B, like, let's say maybe one day I write a book about codependency. That book will help people a lot more because it'll be a professional piece of work, not clickbaity posts and whatever that leverage and commodify my life in order to get people to be interested. It's just going to be a book that's not as exciting and a little bit more academic and will help the people who need it. But anything that's clickbaity and too fun to watch and engage with is like you're kind of trading something to get those eyes.
Yeah, because I've been thinking about with my next step of doing my YouTube and kind of what I want to do. And there's a part of me that was like, I just want to like react to stuff. Like, I just want to do like a reaction channel. And then I was like praying and God was like, well, that's fine, but do you want to be part of the awakening of consciousness or the sleep? And it's true, like no shade. Like I love a good reaction. I love just like a good, easy watch. You know, you and I love our canceled.
Do you watch Cody Co?
Yeah. What
His
do you mean?
reactions? Okay,
Exactly.
Love.
Them. He's not funny to me personally.
I watched
but
him
I love
with Nick. Maybe it's like Nick's humor.
It is. It's easy. It's just easy.
It is easy.
You know, and I love, like, I respect that man so much, like what he's built, and he's an amazing
He's
person.
very boundaried. He doesn't share
Very
a lot about his
boundaried.
life, which is what's nice about reaction
They're
channels.
super smart, the way that they move, the way that they do business, and they're great. He's a great person, so it's nice to like watch. But yeah, I'm like, do I want to be a part of people just kind of checking out when they're eating lunch? Or do I want to be a part of like people's awakening and their growth? And neither's bad or good. But I think in my path, I'm like, oh no, I'm actually here for like people to be and live better, not to like be doing the same.
What if you kind of followed Rick Rubin's advice from the Creative Act, where he says that like creating
good one.
something is not, you cannot think about the audience.
That's true. Mm-hmm.
Like they have nothing to do with it. They have nothing to do with your art.
That's so true.
Your creating is all about, you're creating it for you. And then the audience then finds it or enjoys it because it was something that you were passionate about and that you made. And so, yeah, maybe you don't think about
that's
your
true.
audience or your intention. Yeah. It's just, what are you really passionate about? What do you want to put out there?
Yeah. Because there is that, then there's like that part of me that's like, I have to help people.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. What part of that is the
Yeah.
special wound of I have to be special because I'm helping?
I think it's the special wound. Yes, I have that. I think we all have
everyone
that.
has a special wound.
Oh, yeah. But I think
It's
it would
just
be
that it's
more
called
like,
the ego.
Oh, yeah, 100%. It would be more like, yeah, this is where I have to help people. I need to provide. Like, it's not enough, you know? Like, and then there's like, it's like candy almost, where it's like, yeah, it would make me more special if I'm helping people rather than just doing the reaction stuff.
Yeah. Or also, even looking at like why you're thinking of YouTube as a channel, is there another channel that you'd want? Not a channel, but I mean, is there like a physical channel? Is there, more retreats that are a bit more private, but one-on-one and deeper helping? Or is there, I mean, obviously I'm using my example of art.
Yeah.
What else are you personally, if you take the internet out of it, you take YouTube out of it, you take your business out of it, what does Krista want to create?
That is what's interesting too, though, is like what I noticed in a lot of conversations I have with people, because I'm out all the time with people, is just like it always kind of moves to social media. No matter what, we're kind of like talking, then we're moving to social media, maybe because that's our world.
It is our world.
But I've noticed that a lot of people have so much creativity that is all being channeled into social media. It's like, I feel so creative. I want to create this thing on TikTok. I feel so creative. I want to do this thing and make a reel about it. I feel so creative. I want to do this thing and make a YouTube. And so I also want to be mindful of that.
Yeah.
For me, that's I've used my creativity a lot in building businesses, in doing the work that I do and creating things and whatever. And so I think my desire is to move more into being more of myself, because I feel like at this time in certain parts of my life, I can't be my full self. So my desire in my creativity is like, how can I be more of myself? And there is that part of me that's a communicator, that loves to talk, that loves to like bring a different perspective to things. Like my mind works differently than other people's.
All I can think about is your comedy.
I know.
That's how you can bring other perspectives. We look at you putting your hands on your face because it's like so nervous, like nerve-wracking
I know
for you.
it is.
You're like, oh, I want to cover myself. I don't want to be seen for that.
If I could be any comedian, we don't need to say their name. I'd want to be like the person we watched last night.
Yes. Oh, 100%. But I just think that that's an interesting, like you're
That's so
going back to
true.
what's familiar of like a YouTube channel, a show, a podcast, a whatever, when in reality, maybe your creativity and your full self, what you would enjoy making is comedy. But it's just because that's so foreign from what you've done, and it wouldn't be as people pleasing. It wouldn't resonate with as wide of an audience.
Yeah.
Maybe you're actually held back from that because that's scary. It's scary to do things that are just for you and not people pleasing. And yet that is how we step into our true identity and fully accept ourselves and find the people that will like us for us, not our codependent serving of them.
Yes.
So I think you should become a stand-up comedian. I'll see you in downtown LA.
I know. On my birthday, I'm going to do a set.
Okay.
We're going to rent a house and we're going to have all my friends come. So you can come.
Obsessed.
Yeah. It's going to be amazing. Okay. So we're stepping into our artist phase. I want to round this conversation out with where you're at now and sort of what's really lighting you up.
So as I mentioned, podcast is lighting me up, and I'm looking at it in the lens of how can I just platform people? I can help, let's say 100 people who listen to an episode that I have with a really stellar practitioner actually go on to contact that practitioner and work with them one-on-one for a full year and make such deeper strides in their health than they would just listening to my podcasts over and over again, or just consuming my social content over and over again. Because the information isn't helping people. It's the relationships that are going to help people moving forward. I really feel like something changed after 2023, and going forward, it's not about audience, content, information, social media. It's about relationship and real community and real human connection. And so I want to move away from feeding people constant content, because I don't think that's actually helpful. I want to connect them with folks who can work with them in person. So that'll be the goal of the podcast. And then personally, I am going to be in my cocoon. I have a new project in my life that's trying to come through me. I've suddenly started making art. My mother was an incredible artist. And
our girl is an insane artist.
Thank you, my dear.
It's not I'm making art. It's insane.
Thank you.
It's insane. Like each level of it, when it's abstract, when it's still life, when it's sketch, like it's crazy.
I am finding so much presence and heart. I'm finding so much of my humanity through my art. I think if I continue posting on the internet and throwing content into the content black hole, I will lose my humanity. And when I spend 8 hours in one day on a sketch and I get lost in that, and then I come out of it, the way in which I interact with the world around me, the way in which the voice that looks at a tree and judges if it's a good tree, if the leaves are ugly and dead, instead of just seeing the tree for what it is and appreciating that it's a tree, the voice that sees the tree comes through, not the automatic judgment voice. So art is starting to, that's what's changing my consciousness. And again, I dictate a lot of my life through my dreams. I don't take my dreams lightly. That's been, I think, this one of my secrets, right? In life, secret to success, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, your dreams are crazy.
I don't play about my dreams. If my dream tells me something, I'm taking it seriously and I'm taking action. And I had this dream that I was painting and I was taking these tablets of acid, and I've never taken acid before. I've only taken mushrooms, but I was chewing these tablets of acid and then spitting them back out into the paint and mixing the acid with the paint and then painting with it. And I'm talking to my therapist about it, and she was explaining, and even you said, whenever there's a dream about psychedelics, there's something there that's furthering consciousness. That's the meaning. You're an amazing dream interpreter, by the way. Maybe that's a service you should offer people, is dream interpretation.
I know, I'm good at too many things. I'm mediocre at too many things. I honestly, it's crazy.
Anyway, I think you're excellent at it. But I realized that I always looked to psychedelics to increase my consciousness. When I used to take mushrooms, it used to put me in the God mind, the right mind of looking at a tree and seeing that it's a tree, not comparing it to a tree over there, just seeing things, the presence, the part of our minds that just can look at another person and appreciate them for who they are, right? That furthering of consciousness, which also, by the way, leads us farther away from codependence. I think that consciousness is the antithesis to codependency because it changes our thought patterns and the way that in which we connect. So I thought I had to take mushrooms, or I had to do certain practices, which I'm sure meditation and all of that also would further it for me. But I realized that art gives me the same results, feelings, mental pathway, neural changes that mushrooms do without me having to ingest a substance that also has ramifications. You're kind of burning through neurotransmitters and nutrients to make yourself produce that much dopamine and serotonin, right? Nothing is harmless, except for art. Art's harmless. So all this to say, I'm following my soul. And I know that whatever furthers my own evolution and whatever furthers my own consciousness and helps me to be a better person and helps me to think in that way about the tree is where I need to go. And when I'm on social media all day and when I'm, projecting myself in an image in stories, I'm getting completely away from that consciousness. I'm going into the wrong mind. And so I have to go towards the right mind. I have to continue my art. That's So I'm not going to be able to post about it. I'm not going to be able to be on Instagram all day. I'm not going to, like I said, throw content into the content machine just to stay relevant to the algorithm. I'm going to take a leap. I'm going to take a huge step in faith, and I'm going to start making art and see where that leads me. And maybe I won't post on Instagram maybe I'll have just someone else post my podcast clips, because that's also what I'll be doing for work. Obviously I have an amazing team for my business. They're going to continue our herbal work there. But maybe I'll come back to the internet world in a year or two and I'll start sharing my art, or I'll start hosting art therapy classes, or I'll be a totally different person, or maybe my art will help me further the philosophy and the message that I have to share, like what we shared today. This is the part of me that I like, the part of me that talks about codependency like this. I think I can support people a lot more with this than I can with making supplements, even though I love my supplements. But that was a chapter for me. So I think that if I go deeper into my art, I'll go deeper into this part of me and this relationship that I have with myself and the way in which I think about the world and health and creativity and connection and spirituality. And hopefully through my art, I will be able to share the next iteration of what I will, quote, help the world with. Hopefully it's more of this. Maybe it's something with art therapy. Again, I have no idea, but I'm willing to go into the darkness of the unknown to see what that is. Otherwise, I'll be miserable trying to fit into the same box forever.
Put me in, coach. Put me in, coach. Put me in,
Every time I
coach.
do this dissertation, like this monologue speech for Krista, she's like, yes.
I get hype.
I'm ready.
I'm like,
because you can feel it. It's true. You can feel truth.
Oh my God.
You can feel clarity. Clarity is powerful. It took me a long time to get here. From someone who was terrified to not post on Instagram every single day to someone who's like, maybe I won't post for 2 years.
Is unreal. It's just addictive. And when people are in this, it's just like, oof.
Yeah.
In this pocket of possibility.
Yeah.
In this pocket of the unknown, in this pocket of trusting.
Yeah.
In this pocket of self-exploration to like let go of old identities and step into new, but not knowing where that new goes. Mm-hmm. I mean,
that's the crazy thing. If you don't step into that pocket of misery, because I'm almost having withdrawals from work. That's what I realized when I was like severely depressed November, December, and like not answering your text messages.
I just kept texting,
which is actually really what I need.
Yeah,
and that's so. I need to not feel, because then I feel shame when I don't text someone back for a while because I'm in my isolation childhood pattern hole. I feel the shame. So then it's like, well, then I can't text them.
I have
then they're
people
going to
that
hate
I haven't
me.
responded because I feel that way. Mm-hmm.
Yes. But when someone continues to kind of just be like, hey, love you, I'm here, whatever, and just holds the space, and then I feel safe and I can come out of it. So I could cry thinking about that. I really appreciate friends who do that for me and who just know my thing.
And again, it's not about me. I don't need you to respond to me.
Yeah.
To make me feel okay, to make me feel like you love me.
Yeah.
All I'm doing is like, what's up? I'm here. I see you. And to be seen and like acknowledged in your truth of like, I'm someone that avoids, they're seeing that in me
and accepting me for it.
Yep.
Yeah. So I realized that during that time when you were accepting me for that period of darkness, I was having such a hard time because I've, again, gained my identity and my worth from working so much and engaging on Instagram and being that social media public figure for so long. And so to actually not do it, that's the healthiest thing for me. That shows I'm getting less codependent, but it was the hardest thing because then you're in the dark hole of, but then who am I without this? And who am I, period? That was my trip to London, the theme of it, right? I told you I saw that sticker getting off the plane. Who am I? Or who are you? And so you have to be willing to endure the pain of realizing you don't know who you are at this time because you're letting go of an identity that no longer serves you. And you have to go through that and be willing to be uncomfortable for a while, because if you don't do that, you will never be able to fully detach enough to create the space for whatever's meant to come through next. And don't you want to experience what comes through next? Don't you want to believe that this is not the last thing you'll create in life? Don't you want to believe that you don't have to be stuck here forever and in the same job or career path or identity or city or whatever it is for the rest of your life? You can change, but it's hard. It's why we don't want to do it, because it sucks when you're in the in-between. But it sucks worse to try to force yourself back into a box that you don't fit in just because it's comfortable and it's what you've always done and it makes you feel safe because at least I'm working and at least I have identity because I'm performing and at least I feel worthy because I'm productive. That is not what you're going to be not punished for that, but you're going to have ramifications for it because your soul is telling you that's not it. So I'm willing to enter the darkness right now of the discomfort of not doing what I've always done, and maybe my business suffering for it or whatever, or maybe not, who knows? But whatever that brings, I have to be okay with, because then I'll never know if I'm meant to go make art with children and help them through feeling lonely. I'll never know if I'm meant to mix art with herbalism and do plant walks where we're drawing plants instead of taking them, and maybe they're even more potent when we're drawing them. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. But if I always have the heart of I'm willing to find out and I'm willing to follow my soul because I know my soul will lead me to how I'm meant to serve next, then I know I'm going to be okay. And at least I can lean on that. And there's going to be dark moments where I forget that. And then my friends are going to remind me, or I'm going to listen back to this and remember, I had this clarity once. It's there. I can have it again. And this is the truest iteration of how I feel.
Come on. Let's fucking go.
I'm so cold.
Oh my God, my girl. I love you. I love you.
I love you.
You crushed.
All the blood went to my brain so that I could talk.
My girl's thinking.
She's
She's
thinking hard.
and her hands
It's
are
a think tank.
literally freezing. Oh my God. Okay. I love you.
I love you.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing this out of me, for creating a safe space for me to speak in this way.
Yeah.
I don't do this often.
I know. I feel so grateful. I know. I'm like, this is what's real and this is what's true. I'm so grateful that I can do what I do and just bring through and have conversations like this. And it felt like a conversation we would have outside of the podcast, which feels good. Because sometimes that doesn't feel. Yeah, I know. I love you. Okay, guys. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Olivia. Again, that was Organic Olivia, organicolivia.com. And you can also listen to my episode on What's the Juice. You can listen to an episode that Lindsay and I both did on What's the Juice. You can search Almost 30 What's the Juice, and you'll find both Olivia on ours previously and then us on her podcast before. So lots of listening you guys can do for the show. And also recommend subscribing to Morning Microdose, a free way to inspire yourself to get a little dose of information every single day. It is ad-free, a gift to you from us. And I know you guys are really going to like it.
We love you. Thank you for listening. We'll see you on the next one.
See you soon.
Bye.
Love you guys. Bye.